how you guys doing? Guess what? Carmelo Anthony got an all-black team. We know that. All-star. And let me tell you who's mad. The white people are so mad about this. They are so mad. So in this video, they're saying they're exposing how, honey, the white lawyer really sabotaged Carmelo Anthony. And they're going to put him out there. They're going to expose him. And I think he needs to do jail time for how he set up our black child for failure when all he was doing was defending himself. Carmelo Anthony was minding his business, sitting down with a group of kids, okay, under a tent. And here come Austin, goes and target Carmelo with his group of football players and intimidate him, putting his hands on him, grabbing his stuff. So he defended himself. But you know what? It's God's will. If God wanted Austin to be here, he will still be here. And you cannot question God's will. So let's look at this video. I want to know your thoughts about this. And check this out.
A new legal team is now stepping in to represent Karmelo Anthony as he begins the appeals process. It comes 2 weeks after he was convicted of murder for Austin Metcalf's death. A family spokesperson says they've retained a group of Texas attorneys to review Anthony's case and pursue any grounds for appeal.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's what you call a dream appellate team. A dream appellate team.
So Carmelo Anthony just got himself one of the most powerful legal squads that has ever stepped into a Texas courtroom, and they are doing it for free.
So we got a team of leading appellate civil rights and criminal defense attorneys who announced today that it has taken on the case of Carmelo Anthony, who was recently sentenced to 35 years following his conviction in the death of Austin Metcalf. The team serving pro bono will review the trial record and pursue all available avenues of appeal.
Every single one of these heavy hitters looked at that trial record and said something went deeply wrong inside that Collin County courtroom.
First is, are we in the right county? Should we be in Columbine? I mean, the law says you should be, but I mean, is there a problem with publicity or we just can't be there? Then we go to the race issue, because that's before we even start the trial, we got to have a jury. And so did we do that right? And then once we got the trial going and heard all the evidence, did we tell the jury what to do correctly?
And they're here to expose everything.
He basically had to get the book thrown at him, 35 years in this county that basically, I honestly feel as though we didn't get justice. A lot of things that were missed that should have been handled a certain way. However, we couldn't say anything. We did what was instructed. We was told. So we just did what we was told.
So let's get into it because the real story goes way deeper than a conviction getting appealed. We're talking about sabotage. All right, so here's exactly what dropped on June 23rd, 2026. 6 attorneys announced they are taking over Carmelo's appeal through the Stand with Carmelo coalition, all of them pro bono, and each is bringing serious heat.
A new legal team is now stepping in to represent Carmelo Anthony as he begins the appeals process. It comes 2 weeks after he was convicted of murder for Austin Metcalf's death. A family spokesperson says they've retained a group of Texas attorneys to review Anthony's case and pursue any grounds for appeals.
Lead counsel is Russell Wilson II, a former Dallas County prosecutor who spent nearly 3 decades arguing cases at both state and federal levels. This man knows every move the prosecution runs because he used to run them himself.
That's Russell Wilson II. I mean, you know the Russell Wilson, the football player, but little did you know that there was a bad boy out there in the legal field named Russell Wilson II, who is equally as capable in his field of getting the W. You dig? Russell Wilson with the law office of Russell Wilson II.
The second chair is Michael L. Ware, director of the Innocence Project of Texas, the man who actually gets innocent people out of prison. He helped establish the first conviction integrity unit in the United States while at the Dallas County DA's office. He has been doing this since 1990.
Let's move on over here to the second chair. Michael Ware, law office of Michael Ware,
The third chair is Gary Bledsoe, president of the Texas NAACP since 1991, who has argued before the U.S. Supreme Court and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and has spent decades fighting racial bias in Texas courts specifically.
Then we got Gary Bledsoe, the Bledsoe law firm. Yeah. See, Gary looking all inconspicuous. He got his bow tie on, but he's very dangerous. Very dangerous in them legal streets. Yeah.
And then there's Brooke Clues from Ben Crump Law. Same Ben Crump who represented the families of George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, and Michael Brown. Clues serves as the chief of staff and executive liaison to Crump directly.
Then we got Brooke Claus with the Ben Crump law firm. Now, you know, if Ben sent her, she gonna be one of the best. She's probably the best that he have in that office.
Sean Daradia and Justin A. Moore round out the six.
Then we have Sean Daridia with the Daridia law firm. Yeah. And last but not least, Justin A. Moore with Stafford Moore, PLLC.
That is not just another legal team. It is the Dream Defense Team. Now here's where this gets even heavier because this team did not show up because the family had money to pay them. The family raised $483,308 on GiveSendGo to fight this case. That campaign is now inactive. The money is gone. Every dollar spent on the attorney who is now being accused of sabotaging the whole thing.
I've cultivated a reputation at the courthouses in which I work as somebody who fights for their clients. And if you go to trial, I'm going to give you a hard fought trial, but who's easy to work with, easy to get along with, and reasonable.
The day after his conviction, Karmelo filed a pauper's oath with the Collin County Court describing himself as a penniless, destitute, and indigent person, too poor to employ counsel to represent him on appeal.
Anthony is now telling the court he can't afford an appellate attorney and he's asking for a public defender. That is despite the more than $600,000 a fundraising page was gathered for his family, funds which apparently have all been spent for, quote, legal defense and family relocation.
That is a 19-year-old who had no hope in a Texas state prison, filing paperwork by himself because there is nothing left. And this new 6-person team looked at all of that and stepped in for free anyway. That alone tells you how seriously they take this. You don't bring the Innocence Project and the Texas NAACP and Ben Crump's right hand to a case you don't believe in. Now let's talk about the accusation that started this whole conversation. Because Andrew Anthony has been saying this on camera since June 11th and he hasn't been quiet about it.
We were delusional. We thought we was going to get a fair shake.
Everyone actually lied on the stand.
Everyone.
All of the witnesses' statements were inconsistent.
He said every single Black person around their family gave them the same advice. Get a white attorney if you want to win in that county. That's all they heard. So they followed the advice, did exactly what they were told. And then he sat down with the Breakfast Club and said that the attorney they got basically tossed his son over.
So even when you noticed there were no Black jurors, it gave you pause. It made you want to say something, but you were still going along with the process.
We don't follow instructions, right? So we did everything that we was advised and told to do, and look what happened.
That's a father who followed every instruction he was given, did everything right, and still watched his son walk out of that courtroom in handcuffs. Then he called it what he believed it was, a setup. And now he has a team that's listening. But here's the part that this new legal team is going after the hardest, and it's sitting right there in the court record for everybody to read.
We had 12 actual jurors, and we had 6 more alternates, and they represented a diverse cross-section of our Collin County community.
Over 500 people were called for jury service. When was it done? Not one Black juror sat on that panel. Let that sink in. 500 people. 0 Black jurors because the prosecution used their peremptory strikes to remove every Black woman who made it into the active pool. Mike Howard raised a Batson challenge. That's the legal tool created specifically to stop racial discrimination in jury selection, but the judge denied it. Why? Because the prosecution argued that those women were educators who might be too sympathetic to a case involving teenagers. Now hold up. Pause right there. A white female educator was sitting in that same jury pool. She stayed while the 3 Black women were gone. And what did the original defense attorney do? Didn't press hard enough on that inconsistency? Didn't fight for those jurors as he should have? That inconsistency, that is now one of the sharpest weapons in the new team's arsenal. You better believe they're bringing that to the appellate court. So what does this squad actually do now? Here's how the process works.
Appellate attorney who says the strongest arguments may actually have very little to do with what the jury heard and more to do with whether the trial itself was handled properly.
They are conducting a fresh independent review of the full trial record. Their official statement says their responsibility is to determine whether a legal error occurred and to ensure that every issue supported by the record is fully and vigorously presented on appeal.
So we now have a sentence. Is there grounds for an appeal as we look forward to the next steps in this case for Karmelo?
The first is, are we in the right county? Should we be in Collin County? I mean, the law says you should be, but I mean, is there a problem with publicity or we just can't be there?
Now, here's the thing. The appellate court does not hear new testimony. They look at the record and at well-established law. So, if this comes down to questions of law rather than disputed facts, that's where the new team has the best shot. And this team? They got the Innocence Project director. They got the Texas NAACP president. They got a former prosecutor who knows every trick in the book. They got Ben Crump's chief of staff. This ain't their first rodeo. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they already found something. Right now, Karmelo Anthony is sitting at the Wallace Pack unit near Navasota, Texas. He must serve at least 17 and a half years before he is even eligible for parole. The appeal is filed. The new team is in. And the full evidence package the judge just released is sitting in front of 6 of the most serious legal minds in Texas. Will this team find the legal error that changes everything? Or is Karmelo going to stay behind those walls while the people the family says set him up keep walking free? Stay locked in.